Hello everybody, this is the Wikstrand. So, before this movie came out, I had never heard about the Diplomatic Security Service, DSS. And after this movie had come out, and for the past 26 years, I have never heard this particular agency mentioned even once in any movie or TV show. So I was thinking, did they invent this agency just for this movie? But apparently, DSS actually exists and actually existed for almost 100 years or something like that. So it actually did exist. Funny how that is. Anyway, I don't know how many people actually knows that US Marshals is a spin-off of The Fugitive, or even that The Fugitive had a sequel spin-off sort of. The question is, how good would this movie have been if, The Fugitive never existed, because it cannot, really compare itself in a fair way to the fantastic original and, Oscar-nominated movie, lest we forget. But the question is, how good is this movie? Can it stand on its own, and is it worth seeing? Well, that's what we're gonna find out today. This is my review of US Marshals. So in a parking garage underneath the United Nations building, two agents from the aforementioned Diplomatic Security Service has been killed. There is a big, political hush-hush, and there are, diplomatic papers and classified documents on the loose. The question is, who has killed these people? Because, the murder got away. And a few months later, the case is still unsolved. But then we have this tow truck driver, played by Wesley Snipes, is being pulled over, and in a routine inspection they find this light handgun, and they are going to charge him for possession of a concealed weapon or whatever it was. But the thing is that when his fingerprints come up, it turns out that his fingerprints was on the same gun that killed the agents in the parking garage. And Snipes claims that he's innocent, but his identity seems to be a little bit of a mystery. They don't quite know who exactly he is. But, he's being put on this plane to be transported, somewhere. But as we all know, you cannot transport prisoner, guilty, not guilty, bad, good, whatever, because they will always escape. They will never arrive at their destination. Now, Roberts claims, of course, that he has not done this and that he's being set up by, nobody actually believes him that. But then somebody tried to kill him on the plane with a phony gun, and the plane crashes in an arguably fantastically spectacular and pretty realistic sequence. And in the chaos that ensues, Roberts escapes. But on his trail is, of course, the cop who won't stop, Sam Gerard, played by Tommy Lee Jones, reprising his role from The Fugitive. And it tells them that they're going to search every bunkhouse, doghouse, outhouse, henhouse, and other forms of residences for Roberts. So there is this big huge manhunt that is going down all across the country after him. Gerard's team also gets an additional man. We have this DSS agent played by Robert Downey Jr., who has a special interest in bringing Roberts in, because he killed his colleagues and what have you. Gerard isn't happy about having him, but he accepts him. But as the hunt goes on, Gerard seems to be under the impression that somebody is trying to hide vital information for him. And it feels like he's not just, chasing a fugitive. There is something else going on there, something bigger that he cannot really comprehend at this point, because he doesn't quite know who he can trust and who is Roberts. Did he do this? Was he being set up? And if he did it, why did he do it? That's what we're going to find out in this movie. So this is essentially a similar story to The Fugitive, but it is more from the perspective of Sam Gerard rather than Richard Kimball from the first movie. And Wesley Snipes is of course an important character, but he does not have as much screen time as Harrison Ford had in the first one. I like the fact that this is also a little bit more focused on Sam Gerard's group, and the bickering between them is a lot of fun. This movie has a couple of big stars. It has a big enough budget to make the movie feel important and feel like a solid upper mid-card thriller. We have spectacular chase sequences, we have good cinematography, we have a good film score, we have some entertainment, we have some suspense, and we have a pretty good pace to the whole thing. But this movie also suffers a little bit from what I would call the late 90s curse of adding too many minutes to the runtime. 131 minutes is a bit too much. This is, a movie that you could have shaved off a good 15-20 minutes and you probably wouldn't have noticed it. They also sometimes try to be a little bit too cute for their own good, a little bit too complicated for their own good. And there were sequences that, you didn't really need, and there were a couple of moments where they went a little bit too far, and you say to yourself, you almost had it, but you had to go a little bit too far, didn't you? But I like the fact that they're not chasing, Richard Kimball in this one, and they're not chasing, some doctor who claims that he's innocent, but a man who has a uncertain identity, and how dangerous is he, and, what happens if Sam Gerard cannot catch him because Robert is too dangerous? Will he go too far? Will he go into business for himself and, puts his team in danger? And that is an aspect of the movie that I thought was interesting, even though it sometimes maybe overshadowed a little bit what was happening in the actual movie. You do care about what's going to happen to Robert. What's his plan? What's he actually set up? And what was the reason for them being killed down there in the parking garage? So this is a really good movie. This is the purest definition that I can think about of a good movie to watch on TV on a Friday night, with some popcorn, with some sodas, and some good company. And you can talk about, oh, that was a good scene and that was funny, and Tommy Lee Jones in a wacky chicken costume. This is so much fun. U.S. Marshals is nobody's favorite movie, but it is also nobody's, most hated movie of all time. It is a movie that you will enjoy and you will like, and there are big stars here, and it takes its subject seriously, and it has a pretty good pace, but it will not leave any marks when it's all said and done, and you will have forgotten most of the things that happen in this movie in like a week or two. But during the time that you spend with these characters, you will care. I do also want to mention this. One thing that I kind of wish that they skipped in this movie was the fact that when we have about, half an hour, 35 minutes left of this movie, they pull out a little bit of a twist in the movie. The problem with this twist is the fact that this is a good twist to have at the end of the movie, not with 30 minutes left, because now you are suffering from what I usually call the know too much syndrome, where you know more than the main characters, and that creates a divide between you and the storytelling. Sometimes you can make this work, like Dial M for Murder is a pretty good example of where this actually benefits the movie, but in this case it just creates a frustration of, come on, don't you realize that this and this happened, and that so and so is this and that. That is something that I thought they could have handled in a better way, because it also tied into the ending not being the best that it could have been if they would have instead had a oh moment rather than, oh yeah, that was a good one. So this is a good, solid 90s thriller with some big stars and a pretty good story and a nice looking production. But if you've never seen The Fugitive, do see The Fugitive, but you can see this. You don't have to see this movie to be able to appreciate, the U.S. Marshal movie. So I wouldn't have been against, them making more movies with Sam Gerard chasing somebody after this, but it never happened. So this is a kind of an odd little spin-off that came out in the late 90s that nobody's really talking about, but is a movie that is very solid and is great entertainment and great, late 90s fun. Tommy Lee Jones is really good, and Wesley Snipes does what he can, even though he's not a Harrison Ford. Robert Downey Jr. is pretty good in this movie, even though you can see that he's not too engaged in this movie. He has said afterwards in interviews that he didn't like, this experience that much. Felt like he was, running around in a dull script playing quote-unquote Johnny Handgun. But he's totally fine, and it is kind of cool to see Robert Downey Jr. in the late 90s. But I thought that Robert Downey Jr. added a lot to this movie actually with his presence and his star power. More so what he has now rather than what he had back then, but still, it's still Robert Downey Jr., damn it. As I said, this is a solid, well-produced, well-acted, well-written movie, but without anything new or unique to itself. I give this movie 65 points. Out of the late 90s thrillers, this is an above average movie, mostly because of the star power and its sort of kind of connection to a much better movie. But as I said, if you've never seen this, I do recommend this movie because I think it is an entertaining, fun and uncomplicated thriller that sometimes do get a little bit too complicated for its own good, but never to the point where you go, oh god, please stop this. So I'll see you next time for Well So and So reviewing, well, such and such. Thank you for watching. Thank you very much.